Hey everybody, I'm super excited. Today is the first official episode of BRob Inspired. We couldn't kick it off with a better guest. I have with me Sara Burroughs. Sara's a great friend of our family. She's got a courageous and inspiring story about her son Carson and Sanfilippo disease. I'm super excited to have Sara on the show today. So Sara, welcome.
Thanks for having me.
So a lot to go over today. Obviously, we've known your family for a long time. Why don't you give our listeners an idea of who you guys are, your family, and a little bit about why you agreed to come on to the show today.
Okay, sure. Well, we moved to St. Louis probably about 11 years ago, just with a job transfer with my husband, Craig. And I was pregnant with Carson at the time. We looked lots of different places around St. Louis and just ended up where we did, right in next to your neighborhood, yep. Which I think obviously God had a hand in that. But since then, obviously, we've been raising 3 children in the area, playing lots of sports, lots of activities. And then about 5 years ago, Carson, we received a diagnosis with Carson with something called Sanfilippo Syndrome. And I can explain what that is if that's...
Yeah, tell us about that. So tell us about your 2 daughters, right? That's how we met.
Yes. So Hannah is 16, same age as Kendall. And I think they played t-ball together in kindergarten. So that's, I think you and Craig actually may have coached together.
I think we did, yes.
Yeah, so that's how we met, the Roberts family. And then your younger son, Brock, is in my daughter Addison's class. So we go way back, that's for sure.
I love it. Well, tell us about the little guy. Tell us about Carson.
Carson just turned 11 on Monday, so he is still going to school for right now. He has a lot of energy, which keeps us busy, but he's just the light of our lives.
Yeah, so enjoyed spending time with him at the golf tournament that we just had last week. So for our listeners, our viewers, tell us about Carson. Rewind us back to the beginning. Obviously, we've known each other a long time. And I knew when we heard the news, super devastating. I want to go back to that. What happened? When did you start to notice some things that were different with Carson? And how did all that unfold?
Sure. When Carson was born, he actually seemed very normal. He did have a little stint in the NICU, but nothing too major. But after the first couple of years, we started to notice some delays with him. There just wasn't something quite right. Us as parents, most parents can notice those kinds of things. Sure. So around 5 years old, we kind of pushed for more testing just because we knew that he just didn't seem like your typical 5-year-old. So we were directed towards a child neurologist who did a few tests on him, a genetic test, an MRI, and that's when we received his diagnosis of Sanfilippo Syndrome. Sanfilippo Syndrome is a genetic disorder. Unfortunately, Craig and I passed him a gene that we were unaware that we had, unfortunately.
How common or uncommon is this?
It's the Sanfilippo disease actually is very uncommon. It's very rare. So it only happens 1 in 70,000 births.
Oh, wow.
But the crazy thing is that it is very common to be a carrier for the Sanfilippo gene, but it has to be the certain mutation match up in order to pass it and be clinical in that child. So Craig and I had a 25% chance at each birth to have a child with Sanfilippo syndrome. So it is very, very rare to have Sanfilippo syndrome, but there's a lot of people walking around that have that gene that don't even know about it, unfortunately.
That's unbelievable. Yeah. So Carson diagnosed Sanfilippo. You started to notice some developmental challenges for him at an early age. What does that mean for him? What is the progression? Give our listeners an idea of what you and Craig and your family have on their plate.
Yeah. So when he was diagnosed, there wasn't a huge delay. It was just a few little things that we saw. We actually thought maybe he had autism because he was showing some symptoms of autism. But after that diagnosis, we started to notice a few more things. And what it basically does is it's kind of like Alzheimer's in children. It basically robs them of their memory to be able to perform life functions. So he lacks an enzyme that breaks down trash in his brain. So as that trash builds up, that cell dies. So similar to Alzheimer's, they have cell death in their brain as well. So he over time forgets how to do things. Eventually he'll forget how to talk, how to walk, eventually forget how to swallow or not be able to swallow. Obviously, the brain controls the entire body. So as this progresses, every little life function, it just basically the body forgets how to do it.
Wow. How, as a parent, how have you coped with this? I mean, when you and Craig first learned of this, what was that experience like?
Yeah. I mean, the day the doctor gave us the diagnosis is one I'll definitely never forget. I mean, it was a hard blow to our emotional stability. But at the beginning, it was... all of those symptoms seemed so far off. I mean, we just dove right into the fundraising. At age 5, we felt like by age 11, we might have a cure for this disease. So we did lots of fundraisers. We raised a lot of awareness over the years. We've done T-shirt sales and golf tournaments and dinner auctions and everything to try to help raise money for research. As time has gone on, it's been a little bit more difficult because we're dealing with more of the symptoms of Sanfilippo. So day to day, our day-to-day, or each day, I guess, is a little difficult. He has a lot more needs. He basically can't be left alone, even in the house. He can't dress himself. He can't go to the bathroom on his own. He still can feed himself, though. The boy can definitely put down the food. That has not changed yet, luckily. But it's a very stressful environment to know that you have this child that needs so much at age 11. When we got married, we thought by the time our kids were this age, we would be having dinner out during the week together and not have to worry about finding a babysitter or things like that. Obviously, God had a different path for us on that. So it is definitely quite stressful. It's exhausting. He has a lot of behaviors, so he has a lot of built up aggressions towards people and things. He's very agitated, and he can't really express why he is or what he's feeling. So he can't tell us that he's sad or he's hurt or tell us where he's hurt. So that's kind of what we're dealing with now. He's very mopey and whiny and aggressive, and we can't figure out, how to help him. Well,
that's got to be frustrating as a parent, challenging. Mm-hmm. How have Hannah and Addie absorbed this, dealt with this, dealing with this?
Yeah.
What has that done for them? And then second part of that, how has that, affected you and Craig? I mean, that's got to be challenging on a relationship, on a marriage.
Right.
If you don't mind, how can you talk about how that's affected you guys?
I mean, Addison and Hannah are wonderful. I mean, God could not have picked two better girls to give me in that aspect. And it is kind of a positive and a negative. They definitely do not have a normal childhood. There's a lot of things that they don't get to do simply because we need the help with Carson. We just can't do it all by ourselves. So they get beat up just like we do. They get their hair pulled just like we do. But they have a lot of patience for him, and really there's nobody else in the world I feel comfortable leaving them alone with, more so than those two girls. I mean, at age 16 and 13, they give him baths, they take him to the bathroom, they clean up his messes, they feed him. I mean, they help a lot with the caretaking. So, there is some negatives to that, obviously. There is, we feel bad that they don't get to do some of those things that the normal teenagers get to do. But on a positive note, it's brought us closer as a family.
I bet.
We do a lot just as a family unit. They see Craig and I in our raw state, exhausted, emotional. They have those same emotions too. And I do think that has brought us closer as a family. There's always the teenage struggles a little bit about like any household would have, but they are just true angels in our lives for sure.
So for those of us that are watching and, experiencing from afar, what you guys are going through and what you're dealing with, if we wanted to help, if somebody's listening today and they're like, man, I'd love to get involved with this. What are some ways that we can contribute or, help the Burroughs family, help Carson? What are those outlets? How would that work? If somebody's listening today and is inspired enough to say, you know what, man, I want to get involved. Tell us a little bit about how to do that.
Sure. Well, first, I'd like to say that, our community has been nothing but supportive.
Yes.
We are so lucky to be where we are. We have people contacting us all the time just to babysit Carson or, give us a break or things like that. Yeah.
Really?
It's difficult for us because we feel guilty, having people help us in those aspects. But, educate yourselves would be one thing I could say, because we had no idea about this disease when we learned of the diagnosis, almost 6 years ago. There are a lot of rare diseases actually out there that nobody has ever heard of before. And unfortunately, the big pharmaceutical companies don't really put much effort into those type of rare diseases or much money into those rare diseases, because, it's only helping, a few thousand kids in the world versus, thousands and thousands, that might have some other type of disease. So educate yourselves. There's lots of different foundations out there that you can support. We all are trying to raise money for funding, because all of the research studies or clinical trials that are done are almost all funded by families that have kids with Sanfilippo Syndrome. So we support foundations and we raise money for those foundations because we're not getting any government money. We're not getting any money from pharmaceutical companies or the look from pharmaceutical companies. So supporting any of those small foundations is a huge thing for us as families.
Yeah, I think that was the motivation, inspiration, I know for Kylie and I, was when you realize the amount of people that are affected, but then compare that in aggregate to all the other things that are out there,
right,
and not getting the funding, that more of the larger diseases are out there. That was like, man, we have to do something,
right,
and then obviously knowing you guys, being close to our heart, we wanted to get involved and do something. I think you guys do an amazing job from a fundraising perspective, and the dodgeball tournaments, the golf tournaments. It's kind of cool to see how our community has rallied around Craig and Sara and their family. But I think just getting awareness out there and, knowing that even if you aren't in this community, you can still make an impact and still contribute. So if somebody does contribute, whether that's time, treasure, talent, does it go directly to Cure for Carson and Carson, or is it a larger Sanfilippo organization that goes to? Can you walk us through how that works?
Yeah. So right now we support the Cure Sanfilippo Foundation with all of our fundraising efforts. Their mission is basically our mission, and it's to find a cure for Carson. So the money right now does not go specifically to Carson, but we fortunately have been through a clinical trial funded by the Cure Sanfilippo Foundation. So in a roundabout way, it does come back to him. And we know that if they can find a cure for, Eliza, their daughter, then it's going to benefit Carson as well. So they were a foundation that shortly after the diagnosis, we really didn't know where to turn to. So we did all the online researches and it told us about medical conditions, and it was a very bleak time in our lives, and we reached out to the Cure Sanfilippo Foundation, and they welcomed us with open arms, and they have been a huge support system for us, not only helping us raise awareness and funding, but as personal support system too. They're going through the same thing we are. The people that started the foundation, they have a daughter that has Carson's disease as well. So we're walking side by side through this journey with them. And that's been a huge, huge thing for us, is to have someone that we can just not only about fundraising, but call and say, this is what we're seeing in Carson today. Have you seen this in Eliza? And what did you do? How did you handle this? And it's been a blessing I'm very happy that, we are supporting them in all of our efforts.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Yeah.
Well, take me back. How do you juggle everything? You work, you're a mom, you're a spouse, you've got challenges with Carson, all the fundraising that you guys do, all the extracurricular. Kids are phenomenal athletes. I know you guys are all over the place chasing the girls down. How do you juggle all this as a mom?
I think any mom, juggles. Mom are good with juggling things. That's just the nature of being a mom. But fortunately, I'm very lucky to work just part-time right now. So I am home a lot with Carson, which does make a huge difference. I'm there to, treat him medically if he needs to be treated, I'm there. If he's having a really bad day and just needs to sit on the couch with his mom, I'm there for that too. So I've been blessed, with a hardworking husband that takes care of all the finances and so that I can be home with him. But, our days are, I see you guys doing the same thing. I mean, we're running around and, COVID was nice, being at home without a whole lot to do. But
I was going to ask you about that. How did that affect things? Was that good, bad?
It was great at first because it made us slow down and take the time to focus on our family, which running from activity to activity and just carting Carson along for that journey got to be a little bit much at that point. But I think that's just us going from place to place. And I think Carson likes to be at all of the sporting events. I think that people like to see him too. I mean, I think that not only are these teams in this community helping him, but I do think that he's helping the community as well. I mean, he's raising awareness on inclusion and kindness and compassion. So I think it goes both ways, really, in a community. We all help each other. So, I guess that's it as far as juggling.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know it's a lot.
I'm not doing anything really that different than most moms would go out there. Now, we do have our challenges throughout the day, and we just, deal with them as they come along.
Well, I think you're doing an awesome job.
Thanks.
Where do you draw your inspiration from? I mean, I know, Carson's got a terminal disease, right? And you're seeing him regress and, as best you can, trying to comfort him and make sure that he has everything that he needs and that your girls have everything they need. Right. That's a lot. It's a lot to carry around. And how do you draw your inspiration?
Well, I think my inspiration obviously is my 3 kids. I mean, I would do anything for them, as most moms would. I know Craig would do anything for them, but I think we just want to make sure that they feel loved and they have every opportunity that we can give them. And so just being a mom, I've always wanted to be a mom. That's been, my lifelong dream. So I think my inspiration comes from Hannah, Addison, and Carson for sure.
I love it. Do you ever get upset like, man, I've been dealt a bad hand. This is terrible. Like, why me?
I mean, I think that's a normal response. I mean, I would be lying if I said that I didn't on a daily basis have that attitude sometimes. But you just take a step back and you realize that there's a bigger picture here. That there's a reason why we're going down this journey. God has a bigger path for us and haven't completely figured that out, but that's what we're working towards.
I love that. What, for people that are listening, going through, any challenges, could be challenges with their spouse, work, their children, what advice would you give those people relative to whatever obstacle or hurdle that they have in front of them right now? Well,
I mean, everybody has those challenges. I mean, I always have the mentality like there's somebody out there that has it way worse off than I do. Like I said, I'm very blessed to have a very hardworking husband and these 3 wonderful kids and such a great support system and a great family support system. There's a lot of people that don't have that. So for me, I know that it could be a lot worse. And we do pray a lot. We talk to our priests a lot about the hand we've been dealt. And like I said, I think you just have to kind of have that mentality that there's a greater picture here. And, our suffering that we go through on a daily basis will all prove to be something bigger.
Yeah, I love that. Is there any advice you would give to us on the outside looking in? Anything that you would say to somebody about your guys' situation or how we could help? Any advice that you would give us?
I think just, being kind to people. We see a lot, obviously there's a lot of kids out there that have varying degrees of issues, autism, ADHD, and just teaching your kids to be kind and patient with those kids. And I know the kids at Carson School have been wonderful about being patient with him because not everybody understands why he does the things he does. And we don't even understand sometimes on a daily basis. But, teaching your kids to be inclusive and be kind to everyone, I think is the advice I can give, because I think that just makes the family's journey a little bit easier to know that they don't have to worry about their kid going to school and getting bullied or, things like that.
I think that's fantastic. Yeah. What is one specific example where maybe you have seen that inclusion, or you've seen something from a child or a family that you're like, man, that is absolutely inspirational. Like, never thought that I would witness that or see that. Do you have anything that comes to mind when I say that?
I mean, honestly, that happens a lot in our lives. It really does. I mean, even Carson's school, the kids, if they have an event, I mean, everyone is high-fiving him through the event, playing kickball with him. He used to love playing kickball at school. There's a whole softball or baseball tournament going on this weekend down here in Chesterfield. We usually take him up for those, and everybody, including the umpires, the players, everybody comes up to say, how much that, they love Carson, and he loves to give high fives to people. So I think that the parents in the area are doing a good job for sure with that inclusion.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
Any other final thoughts, anything that you would share that would be important for us to know, or anything about your life, Carson, that you think would be inspirational for us to take note on?
Mm-hmm. Could I think about that for a second?
Yeah, sure.
Well, you asked me about the marriage thing, and I'm not sure I touched on that.
Sure.
I mean, obviously, the day-to-day things with Carson can be quite stressful, and they're very exhausting. So, but at the end of the day, a lot of times there's not much left to give to your spouse. So it's something that we definitely work on, and just like any marriage. I know a lot of special needs families have that struggle with their marriage, but sure. I think Craig and I make a very good team with having to take care of him. And so, again, there's a reason why we were put together so many years ago in college, was because we knew we would make a good team together.
Yeah. Sara, if we want to get involved, if somebody's listening today and they feel so compelled to contribute financially, want to learn more about Sanfilippo, want to follow you and your family and Carson, how would they get in touch? How would they get involved?
So we have a Facebook page, Cure for Carson. So all of our events are usually posted on there. So if people around locally want to be involved in some of our fundraising events, you can go there. There's also a website, Cure Sanfilippo Foundation, curesff.org. You can put in Meet the Families and put Carson's name in there, and you can follow our journey and also donate directly to our efforts.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much for being on our show today.
Thank you so much for having me.
You guys are an inspiration. Love your family to death, and hopefully this raises awareness, and then also inspire somebody that's out there to maybe you have challenges in your life. Maybe you have something that you've been dealt that you feel is unfair. But I think, the way that Sara Burroughs tackles her life, puts her hands to God and basically knows that everything's happening for a reason, I think is inspiration in and of itself. So thank you for being on our show today. I really appreciate it.